So why did Hamas launch a vicious attack on Israel, knowing it could lead to a war that might threaten their existence? Who else wanted this war and why? And how does an organization that executes homosexuals, subjugates women, and endorses child marriage enjoy the support of many young Westerners? Now, ironically, one of the main triggers of this war was actually peace. Israel signed the Abraham Accords peace agreement with four Muslim countries, the Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. It was on the path to extending these accords to include Saudi Arabia, the largest Muslim country in the Middle East, a major step that could shift the region toward long-anticipated peace. Hamas opposed it. But also another key player in the Middle East, Iran, or more accurately the radical regime of Iran. Iran's regime opposes not only Western values, the USA, and Israel, but also Saudi Arabia. Why? They are the two most dominant countries in the Middle East, competing over oil and, more importantly, religious influence. Saudis are Sunni Muslims, while Iranians are Shia Muslims. Since the Islamic Republic took over Iran in 1979 and radicalized it, the conflict has grown. They have been involved in proxy wars in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and other countries, all with both Shia and Sunni populations, also thanks to the poorly drawn borders by the British and French. While Saudi Arabia is backed by the US, Iran is backed by countries such as Syria, China, Russia, and North Korea, which all oppose Western values, such as democracy, freedom of speech, women and gay rights, etc. Iran specifically opposes Jewish democratic Israel, so much that they made an exception to support the Sunni jihadist group Hamas that controls Gaza Strip. A peace agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia, mediated by the United States, would increase the regional influence of Iran's enemies. That's why it is believed they collaborated with Hamas to orchestrate an attack on Israel, designed to provoke a strong Israeli retaliation and push the Saudis away from the negotiation table. While Iran's level of involvement is not yet confirmed, many think they were behind the decision for the attack, especially since they met with Hamas leaders beforehand, trained their forces, supplied them with arms, and openly supported them. But most importantly, it's simply unlikely that an Iranian proxy would carry out such a plan without their sponsor's guidance. Regardless of the exact extent of Iran's involvement, the strategy seemed to succeed, at least temporarily, as Saudi Arabia suspended the peace talks shortly after the war began. That's regarding Iran. Now, besides sabotaging the peace talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia, Hamas has additional local objectives: to exchange the Israeli civilians they kidnapped for their imprisoned members in Israel, including men, women, and minors accused of murder or attempted murder, which, by the way, is the same method used for the release of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, who directed the October 7th attack. Sinwar was freed in a previous exchange, after the Israelis had saved his life by removing his cancer in surgery. And of course, Hamas's long-standing objective of eliminating Israel, as for them free Palestine means the entire land, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, including Israel in the middle, backed also by their official charter that calls for the elimination of all the Jews around the world. As jihadists, Hamas rejects peace with Israel and have consistently opposed the two-state solution proposed by Israel, including in 2000 and 2008. Hamas members are willing to die for their cause, which is great for Iran, that they could always sacrifice their pawn and deny they had anything to do with it if things go south. By the way, the term Palestine usually refers to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Hamas seized control of the Gaza Strip after Israel's withdrawal in 2005. So, in order to force the Israelis to retaliate very strongly, Iran and Hamas needed a horrific attack, beyond ISIS, the type you target civilians, set babies on fire, torture kids, mutilate, rape, behead, and kidnap as many as possible, including babies. These practices are not standard terrorist attacks. They're extreme ones, requiring a different level of detachment from humanity. Therefore, besides training their men, they also secretly preach them extreme religious doctrines to motivate such acts, similar to what ISIS did. However, this was done in secret mosques, knowing that Israel monitors their regular ones. But simply carrying out these acts wasn't enough. They also needed the Israelis to know what happened, so they recorded what they did using body cameras and the victims' phones, and uploaded them even to the victims' social media accounts. The goal was to shock Israel with images it hadn't seen since the Holocaust, provoking a strong retaliation. Now, Hamas knows it can't defeat Israel militarily in a standard confrontation, so they'll quickly hide in an underground city located strategically under civilian population, schools, and hospitals, using them as human shields. When Israel's retaliation would unavoidably kill Palestinian civilians that won't evacuate, like in any war ever fought, Iran-supporting countries, together with some Western groups, would call for a ceasefire. If Israel stops, it undermines its ability to defend itself, and Hamas survives to do that again. If Israel continues, it would increase Israel's isolation, push the Saudis further away, and also risks the already existing peace accords. And while Hamas could end up being defeated in one of these scenarios, Iran would not. And while Hamas is in hiding, Iran has its own role, helping sway Western public opinion against Israel by using its local contacts to fuel anti-Israel protests. Given the global Muslim population of 1.9 billion, it's easier to find such contacts, with a ratio of 118 Muslims for each Jew. Iran would also activate its Shia proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, to attack Israel. However, Iran is unlikely to directly engage with Israel, particularly if the US would send its navy to protect it. Other anti-West countries might contribute differently. For example, while not officially confirmed, it is believed by many that China manipulates the exposure algorithm of the Chinese-owned TikTok to influence young people in the US and Europe, especially the progressive left, to support what they perceive as an anti-West stance. So to sum things up, that's how Iran's radical regime and Hamas successfully executed their plan to pause the ongoing peace talks between Israel and westernizing Saudi Arabia, by executing a vicious massacre, triggering a retaliatory war in Gaza that would unavoidably see many Palestinian casualties, shifting public opinion against Israel, led by local supporting Muslims and the progressive left that allegedly stand with Gaza, but never in it, placing Israel in an unwanted war and forcing the Saudis off the peace negotiation table mediated by the US. So that radical Iranian Shia Islamic regime that couldn't care less about Sunni Palestinians in Gaza, backed by countries such as Syria, Russia and North Korea, will stay a dominant Middle Eastern force and could spread more non-democratic anti-Western values.